Hello, and welcome to the first edition of the Broken Orbital MMA Podcast. My name is Jack Buchanan, and I'm going to be bringing you 2 shows per week centering around the UFC events that are transpiring and, maybe the odd kind of Bellator or PFL or one championship event as well, because we're not exclusively talking about the UFC here. We'll also be talking a little bit about, Cage Warriors events and other kind of local things here to the UK. But we're going to kick off the pilot episode here. This is your UFC 272 Hangover. And we're going to be discussing the hangover that we've all got from Saturday evening. I know I sure have right now. But I'm going to dive right into it. So let's just dive straight into this and talk about the main event. But before I do that, if you do enjoy this, please follow and like and subscribe and all of those things, and share us about if you do enjoy it, because it lets me know that people are interested and want to see more, and it really does help me a lot, and it goes a long way, so I'd greatly appreciate that. We're on all the social medias as well, these pages, Twitter and even TikTok and things have resigned to that. I think we're just Broken Orbital on TikTok, and we're Broken Orbital _ on Twitter, so go give us follows there if you do enjoy this sort of thing. But yeah, without any further ado, let's go and talk about Colby Covington and Jorge Masvidal. So let's talk then about the main event. Former teammates Colby Covington and Jorge Masvidal finally settled their feud on Saturday night, and the fight kind of went very much how I expected it to go. I think how most of us probably expected it to go. The defining factor really, or the main edge that Colby had over Masvidal on Saturday night was his cardio. I mean, obviously Jorge Masvidal, he used to refer to Covington as the cardio king himself, so he knows, and I think we all know that Colby Covington's got some of the greatest cardio in the entire UFC, right? The pace that he sets, and that was what, more than anything, won him the fight on Saturday night. From the first bell until the last, Colby didn't give Jorge a chance to breathe. He put him under physical pressure from the first second. And, I think when you look at a guy like Jorge Masvidal, he's never won a fight that's went 5 rounds. He has never really been a 5-rounder for his most part. Obviously he went to 5 with Kamaru Usman, which he, suffered a pretty similar fate to in that first fight. And then there was, in Strikeforce and things, I think he's headlined cards. But in the UFC, he's never really been a main event kind of guy. He's never been a 5-rounder, despite all his experience. I think that definitely showed that he didn't have the cardio. He wasn't in the best of shape, I suppose. And Colby did take this fight on relatively short notice, I suppose. Like, when you consider Jorge Masvidal was meant to be fighting Leon Edwards initially, of course. That was the fight that was initially meant to happen, and that wasn't all too long ago either. So this was put together relatively hastily. So yeah, Colby obviously was in good shape anyway, despite the fact they only fought a few months ago, and I suppose Masvidal would have been in the gym longer. Yeah, Covington, he used that as his cardio, as expected, to his advantage. And other than really, a bit in the 4th round where Masvidal did catch Colby with a nice shot, and he did buckle him, and he kind of fell to his knee. Colby Covington took the knee for Jorge Masvidal. That was it, really, and he didn't follow up there. I don't think he had the energy to follow up, and I think he said afterwards that he was, he was maybe anticipating Colby to try and shoot and take him down. Overall, though, an excellent fight from Covington. He wore Jorge down and done what he had to do to win the fight, and he looked really impressive doing it. I mean, a little bit of an unpopular opinion. I actually scored Covington in Usman's second fight ever so slightly for Covington. Not that it was a robbery or a bad decision. It was just that close. I think it could have won either way. Point is that Colby Covington's one of the best pound-for-pound fighters in the world. I don't think anyone can really deny him that, no matter what you think of him or his personality. I don't like his gimmick. I like the real guy. I think he's underneath. So I don't like his gimmick, and ideologically and things. I certainly don't resonate with him at all. And that's just really cringy, this whole, wrestling heel thing, but it's working for him. But regardless of what you think of that, you can't deny his ability in the cage. And Jorge Masvidal, I think, is a guy who just has never been on that level, really. He's a top 10 guy, I think, or he kind of peaked as a top 10 guy, but, he kind of fell up short in most of his big moments, really, in the UFC, his big fights. He lost a lot by split decision. He had the Damian Maia fight and things when he was a fight away from the title. Of course, he beats Darren Till, which was huge for him, and, he goes in that run that he went on in 2019, but, I mean, since then, obviously he's lost 3 on the bounce now. And I don't know where he goes from here. I think for Colby Covington, there's a few options as to kind of what he does next. And I think it depends on what's his aspirations, right? And I think he's calling it Dustin Poirier. Now, they're two guys that are in really similar positions in the sense that Colby Covington, he's obviously got the win here tonight, but before then, lost to Kamaru Usman. He lost him again before, obviously a couple of years ago. He's now 0-2 against the current champion, and he is by far and away, he's the number one guy in this division, besides the champ, right? I know Leon Edwards has still got to fight and things, but assuming, let's just, and obviously this is by no means a given, but let's just hypothetically say that Usman beats Leon Edwards. Colby's the number 2 guy, right? He's the second best. And I think with Dustin Poirier, okay, it's not quite the same at lightweight for him, but, he's fought for the title twice now in the past couple of years. He's just lost again there to Charles Oliveira. So, I think for the two of these guys, there's a considerable amount of work for them to do to get back to the title, the title shots. But they're two guys who I do think their career aspirations have been to be world champions, right? So I think it just depends right now on, do these guys, do they take a step back and fight against each other, let other contenders fight, because they probably, I think they're grounded enough to appreciate that they are not in the title picture as it stands just because of their recent losses. Or do they just kind of get back on the horse and get back on fighting contenders? I think if that's what Colby Covington does, then I think you've got to look at maybe the Burns-Chimaev winner. In my opinion, I think the Burns-Chimaev winner probably should fight, should probably be fighting against the winner of Usman-Edwards. Well, maybe, you'd probably give Usman the rematch there, but I think for Covington, Burns-Chimaev winner makes a bit of sense. Although I'd like to see them fight against Usman, the winner of that fight against Usman, if he can defeat Edwards in the summer. I think the fight that actually makes the most sense for Colby Covington, though, out of them all, would probably be the winner of Vicente Luque and Bilal Muhammad. I think that's a big fight. I think, Vicente Luque in particular now is on a bit of a streak. His last couple of wins as well over Tyron Woodley and Michael Chiesa, big names, top 10 guys, borderline top 5 guys. So, yeah, Vicente Luque's earned that big fight, and Bilal Muhammad, of course, has got a couple of wins on the bounce now. So, to be honest with you, I think the winner of that fight is the one that makes the most sense for Colby Covington, But again, it just depends on what he wants. It sounds like he really wants this Dustin Poirier fight. I guess we'll wait and see if it happens, but I don't know. I wouldn't hold my breath. I think that's a bad fight for Dustin Poirier, and I think he knows it, and I think Dustin wants this Nate Diaz fight, which we'll maybe talk a wee bit more about that in a minute. For Jorge Masvidal, yeah, he's in a really weird position because he's just penned a lengthy and lucrative contract going into this fight. And he's a guy who's still living off of the flying knee that he landed almost 3 years ago now. So, I mean, where does he go from here, right? Because, let's be honest, and Colby's no spring chicken either, right? But Jorge Masvidal's what, 37, 38? He's taken a lot of damage in his career. He's had a lot of fights. And he's fought for the title now twice. And it's not like he had a bit of, like even like Covington and Poirier who we're talking about there. There was breathing room in between their title fights. Masvidal lost very convincingly. And then fought again straight away. I know it wasn't straight away. I know the Gilbert Burns fight happened in between. But for Masvidal it was just, he went from losing to Usman again. So there wasn't any breathing room, which I think you kind of need between title fights for the most part, especially if you're on the losing side. I don't think you can kind of just go back in there and fight the champ again. I do think you need a bit of breathing room in order to kind of build up your case and improve and make the fight more exciting. But I mean, so I don't understand what Masvidal does now, because he's on this lucrative deal. He's not going to go back and fight for the belt. I don't think he's going to. I think he is grounded enough and authentic and real enough, or whatever you want to say, to understand that it's probably out of his reach now with his age and with just the fact that he can't compete with Covington or Usman or those guys at the very top of the division. He's not on that level. He's not this elite fighter. So for him, it's only big fights. I think if you want to talk about divisional sense, the one that makes the most sense to me would be like maybe a Ponzinibbio. Sean Brady is one that I really like for Masvidal, because I think that'd be a great fight. But is it the wisest one for him to take? Probably not. If he's making all this money and if he's got this lengthy deal, the UFC are going to make him fight. And I don't know, maybe you do Nate Diaz again, do you? Is anyone interested in that? I was saying, we're talking about Conor McGregor. I think that's one that could potentially happen as well. And I think, to be honest with you, kind of given McGregor and Masvidal's respective positions in their divisions, I think I would be relatively interested in seeing that, just because I don't think either guy is a legitimate title challenger. I don't see them really being able to break into the title picture. So why not have a fun fight? Because he's going to be involved in fun fights. So I guess you could go that way. But I think, in my opinion, I think McGregor Diaz 3 is probably what's going to happen next, and it's probably what's going to make the most sense, because I think he's still going to get one fight left in his deal. And if they can't get this Poirier fight done, if Conor's going to come back in the summer, they've booked this event in Anaheim for July, which is the second pay-per-view in July. So it makes you kind of wonder, is there something big going on there? Is there, are we making an event for someone? And surely if that's the case, it's going to be for Conor. So maybe Masvidal can fight Conor. Maybe Masvidal will fight Nate again. Maybe he'll fight Nick. I don't really know. I guess if it's up to me, I'm just going to go boring and I'm going to pick Sean Brady, because it's the one that makes the most sense from a divisional standpoint. But yeah, I think he's in a really difficult position right now, Masvidal. I'm very curious to see what they do with him. But that's enough about the main event. Let's talk now about the co-main event. Okay, so on to the co-main event, and what a performance, first of all, from the former champ Rafael dos Anjos. He takes out Renato Moicano over the course of 5 rounds. And, I mean, as I said, wow. A vintage RDA performance. He was incredible. He was absolutely fantastic. In particular, the striking really opened up as well. He dropped him with a big head kick in the fight, and he opened up his left hand, and Moicano just kind of really struggled with his pressure, and with he kind of struggled to keep the fight at the longer ranges where he wanted it to be. But I mean, even RDA dictate in terms of like how the pacing of this fight and where this fight took place and all of that sort of stuff, really controlling the fight. It was utterly dominated by RDA, and as I said, his striking really shone through in this fight, because Renato Moicano's a good striker. He's not bad at all, but his striking, I think he won those battles. But then again, he done his best work on the mat, which is, I think, something that we've always said about RDA. Really, is that is where he does his best work. He just maybe, I think at times, has maybe struggled to kind of get the fight there, but his wrestling was great in this fight. But I think there has to kind of be, not an asterisk beside it, but I think we'd have to mention the fact it's very important to understand that Renato Moicano took this in 5 days' notice. He took this without a camp at all, really. He was just, I think he was in Brazil when he got the phone call and he had to be flown out to Vegas. So he was in Brazil 5 days before this. He just had a fight a couple of weeks ago. After he defeated Alexander Hernandez, he was back home, resting, recuperating, not in the gym. And I think that's really important. And the fact as well that this was a 5-rounder, by the way. This was a 5-round fight. I don't think that made sense to keep it as a 5-rounder, especially again when you consider that Renato Moicano, is a guy who has never actually went 5 rounds before. To kind of chuck him in on 5 days' notice in the deep end, it just seemed a bit silly to me. But I mean, there's not much to say other than RDA completely wiped the floor with him, and he's in a very interesting spot as well in a bit lightweight, isn't he? Because of course he had his little stint at welterweight, but look at the guys that he lost to, right? Colby, Usman, of course. He lost to Leon Edwards and Michael Chiesa. They were the 4, right? Like, those are some elite guys. That's top 5 guys in the weight class, besides maybe Chiesa, who's not, just shy of that. And even as well, you look at his losses at lightweight. Before then, over the Ferguson and Eddie Alvarez and things, and you have to go back to all the way to Khabib Nurmagomedov. But everyone that I just listed off there, all 7 of those names are his only losses in the UFC. So RDA has only ever lost to the best guys in the world, the best of the best. You look at the names of the guys that he's beaten as well. Cowboy Cerrone, of course, what a performance that was when he defended his title. Obviously, Anthony Pettis, Robbie Lawler as well, Kevin Lee. And now, obviously, he's got 2 in a row here, back at lightweight. I mean, obviously, this one was a 160 catchweight bout, but back at lightweight. Is RDA in the title picture? Not quite, but he's just about there. Right? And he never really, he's never been outside the top 10, as I'm saying. You look at the guys that he loses to, no matter what weight class. So yeah, RDA is relevant. And he has some really, really good options as well. I think the one that makes the most sense here, genuinely, I think, is Dustin Poirier. I think that's the fight that makes the most sense. Poirier now, of course, just lost to Charles Oliveira, as we mentioned. I think he's in a spot right now where if he does want to get back to the belt, if he wants to fight for the belt, he's going to have to go and beat a contender. And he's going to have to beat a guy who's maybe not quite in the top 5 yet, but is just about there. And RDA is riding the 2-fight win streak, and he's looking great. And I think this fight would be so much fun. What a matchup this would be. But I don't think he's going to take it. Poirier, that is. And I think there's a matchup that might actually eclipse it. And that would maybe be RDA and Michael Chandler, because of the wrestling as well. I think that would be really fun. Again, I think that one makes a lot of sense. The only issue, though, is I think Michael Chandler and Tony Ferguson, it's not done or anything, but I think the UFC do want to make that one happen. So if that happens, RDA Dustin Poirier to me makes a ton of sense. I'd love to see him against either of those 2 guys. I think you could rebook the Fiziev fight. It would make a little bit of sense. I think Islam Makhachev, of course, people are talking about that, but I think him and Beneil Dariush is probably the fight that, well, I don't know if it has to happen. I think you could arguably give Makhachev a title fight, and to be honest with you, they probably should just be doing that anyway at this point. But it sounds like they're going to punish him for playing with him and not taking this fight. But yeah, I think for RDA, Poirier or Chandler, for me, would make the most sense. Hopefully we see that, because that would be it, or one of those, because that would be so much fun. And as for Renato Moicano, I think in a very similar position to Bobby Green, who of course won on the same card at the UFC 271, got a nice big emphatic finish. Not finished, emphatic performance. I don't think he finished them, did he? I can't remember. I don't think he did, but he looked great. Yeah, Bobby Green looked great that night. Comes in and takes a fight with Islam Makhachev, one of the top 5 guys in the world, maybe the most feared man in MMA. Takes that fight on really short notice. Of course loses, but I still think we need to treat Bobby Green like we commend him for taking that fight, but we don't treat it like he's lost, and I felt really bad for him because, or not that we don't treat it like he's lost, but this shouldn't hurt his stock too much, if you get what I mean. And I felt bad for him because he just got a big win. Bobby Green's been a near league man his kind of whole career, right? In the sense that he's almost been like a top contender. He's maybe just been shy, and then he goes through slumps where he's fighting guys who are not ranked, and he's outside of the top 20 fighters in the world. But now he's back, and I think he's a legitimate guy who should be looking to break into the top 15 and this and that. And then he gets this fight with Islam Makhachev on short notice, a guy who, he shouldn't have been in there with. We wouldn't be matchmaking that at all, right? I think Bobby Green should be fighting a guy who's in the top 15, not a guy who's in the top 5. So I think for Renato Moicano, it's a similar position, right? We don't hurt his stock too much. He took this on 5 days' notice. He's a gangster, right? He stepped up and, took a massive fight on 5 days' notice. And again, I think we need to commend him for that. And I think we kind of treat him still, not as if he's this fight hasn't happened, but we don't hurt stock. He was still coming off of a big win over Alexander Hernandez. I think that's the important thing to remember, right? So we treat him like he's on his 2-fight win streak, is what I mean. And yeah, I think for Renato Moicano, a guy in the top 15 as well. I think Brad Riddell's one I really want to see. I think there's an interesting fight there. Obviously, Brad Riddell as well, I'm pretty sure is coming off a loss. So I'd like to see that one. If they can make that happen, that would be great. Let's talk now about the featured bout of the main card, which was pretty something as well. So the Arkansas native Thug Nasty Bryce Mitchell, he extended his perfect professional record to 15-0, racking up his sixth win, in the UFC. And defeating Edson Barbosa in an utterly dominant fashion. And the interesting part about this fight and the top two on the card is that the grappling, really the definitive factor, the wrestling in particular as well. Bryce Mitchell's wrestling last night, was really good. And again, another fight in which kind of went the way that I thought it would. And I know a lot of people were, saying, Edson Barbosa here as an underdog's pretty nice, and that it's, Edson could win that fight. And of course he could, but I did think it was really quite likely that he would end up on the mat. And if you end up on the mat with Bryce Mitchell, I don't think there's many people who would be able to, get back up or really, win the fight from that position or win a round from that position, and nobody's done it yet. I mean, he's just so dominating. It's like his and when he gets on the mat, right, like he is relentless in his pursuit of a submission. He doesn't let up. He doesn't stop. Like he's taking you down. He's not taking you down, to get positions, or he's not taking you down for those reasons. He's taking you down because he wants to submit you, right? This guy just wants to submit you. That's his. That's why he's fighting. But it looks like that's why he does this, because he wants to do that. He will not stop. I mean, that fight with Charles Hossa that happened at UFC 249. How Charles Hossa went the distance, how he got out of that fight without tapping, to me is one of the most incredible things I think I've ever seen in this sport, and I've seen a lot of fights. It was just incredible. Bryce Mitchell, he even dropped him with the left hand, of course, and that's really how he got him to the feet. Sorry, got him to the ground in the first instance, but from then on, utterly dominated him, just doing what he does, being this incredible grappler, and even scoring a 30-25 decision on one of the cards. So that tells you right there just how effective his grappling was in that fight with Edson Barbosa, and he needs a big fight next. He needs a big fight. And featherweight's an interesting one, because initially I think you're drawn to the likes of Movsar Evloev and Ilya Topuria, who now have got respective other opponents. I think Topuria's fighting Jai Herbert, and I can't remember who Evloev's fighting, but he's got a fight. I'd like to see they two get matched up again, though, if they win, which I think they will. I think keep that fight. There's obviously the likes of maybe Ryan Hall, but, I think Ryan Hall as well, he's coming off of a loss, which I think is also pretty important to consider. Bryce Mitchell needs a big fight right now. He's not coming off a loss. He beat Darek Minner, didn't he? Right, okay. Well, he beat Darek Minner at the end of last year. Sorry, that completely escaped me. I don't think still, Bryce Mitchell needs a top 10 guy now. Edson was just outside the top 10. If not, he was probably like the number 10 guy. Give him a top 10 opponent, and I think the fight that makes the most sense, I tell you what, I'm not opposed to a fight with like a Brian Ortega, maybe Chan Sung Young if he loses against Alexander Volkanovski. I think that fight actually is probably the one that makes the most sense. But I'm just going to say the Arnold Allen Dan Hooker winner, because that's happening next week. That's happening next week. I think maybe the winner of that, I think Arnold Allen also, though, if he can win that, is in need of a big fight, which is an issue. Like, I think he needs to go to Arnold Allen should be fighting a top 5 guy. Bryce Mitchell maybe not quite a top 5 guy yet, if you get me. But it's not a bad outcome. So I'm going to say, why not Arnold Allen if he can defeat Dan Hooker, or Dan Hooker if he can defeat Arnold Allen. I think that makes sense too for Bryce Mitchell. As much as I want to see him in there against a Topuria or an Evloev, really test his grappling skills, and I tell you what, that is a fight. A fight with one of those guys. I mean, you throw Ryan Hall into the mix as well. Imagine like a 4-man tournament of those dudes. MMA fights, right? Because, but they would be grappling. Yeah, let's do that. That's a good idea. I think we should just do the 4-man tournament. If we move on now and have a look at the next fight on the card, it was Kevin Holland and Alex Oliveira. I had to double check because I forgot. And yeah, another fight that really kind of went. I'm looking at these fights here. A lot of these went the way you think. I think, most of us would have expected. I don't think anyone really thought Kevin Holland was going to wipe the floor with Alex Oliveira. Maybe he did, and obviously, he did knock him out in the second round. But Alex Oliveira put him under pressure in the first, and that's exactly what I thought he was, because what I thought he'd do, because he's wild. He's a bit mad, and he did cause Kevin Holland some problems in the first. Obviously, Holland comes out and knocks him out in the second, which I think, again, most of us probably expect him to do. He's just got that power edge. And I was a little maybe concerned with Kevin Holland coming in to this fight at welterweight, because he's not a big middleweight, but he's a middleweight. He's quite lean, I suppose, for a middleweight. But yeah, I was, it's not a 10-pound gap either. It's a 15-pound gap, of course. So I was a little concerned with how he would look coming in here. But yeah, he looked good. Kevin Holland looked good. He looked in shape. Obviously, he fought a really good fight and got the win. And yeah, now he's doing his thing. So that's interesting. Kevin Holland is a player at 170 to consider. He did call out Cowboy Cerrone because he obviously defeated Cowboy Oliveira. Resounding no to that. I mean, Kevin Holland is a guy who should be looking to climb the welterweight rankings. Don't throw him in there with Cowboy Cerrone, who's a layup for him, who's a guy who's probably a lightweight. Should be a lightweight. Yeah, don't do that. I think for Kevin Holland, I've got a great fight for this one. What about a rematch with Jeff Hands of Steel Neal? They fought before they made it to the UFC. Of course, now look at them. They've made it. Two guys that are... Kevin Holland probably will be ranked after this. Jeff Neal's in the rankings. Yeah, make that fight. That's a good fight. I'd love to see that one. And I think, it's got a bit of a storyline behind it. Rematch, but there's a good few fights. Ponzinibbio, who I mentioned earlier, decent option for Kevin Holland. Sean Brady, who I mentioned earlier, probably deserves a guy who's in that top kind of 5 range, but still an interesting option. For Alex Oliveira, I think for him, he probably should just be fighting a guy who's, a veteran in the welterweight roster, a guy who's had a few fights. I don't think it really matters who you match him up against next. And then the final fight, or the first fight rather, I guess, from the main card was Sergey Spivak and Greg Hardy. And again, another fight which went exactly the way I thought it was going to go. I did give Greg Hardy a little window of hope for this one, because he does have some really good attributes for a heavyweight in terms of his athleticism and his speed. His hand speed's pretty good. But he's just getting to the point now where he's that's when I was watching him on the Contender Series and watched him in his fights before then. You kind of get to the UFC, and so, you need to be a lot better than have fast hands. You can't just rely on having quick hands. And a guy like Sergey Spivak, though, of course, Tom Aspinall's hand speed and his movement and things. Not that Greg Hardy moves like Tom Aspinall, but he's got, what I mean, he's got the fast hands that Aspinall used to knock out Sergey Spivak. But it went exactly the way I thought it would, in the sense that as soon as this fight hit the mat, Sergey Spivak was going to finish him, because he's, what is he? Polar Bear is his nickname. He's a bear. He's a bear of a man, and Greg Hardy has been fighting for a couple years. Well, not a couple years, a few years. Point is that, Sergey Spivak was going to win. I got plus money on that. I don't know if anyone else did. I got plus money on Sergey Spivak to finish Greg Hardy in this fight. As soon as this fight hit the mat, Greg Hardy was going to look for a way out of here. It's not so nice when you're fighting against guys, is it, Greg? Not just guys that weigh the same as you, and guys that can hit back. Yeah. So, Greg Hardy, his next fight, I don't know, should be, I don't know, anywhere. Maybe he should go to play for some, I don't know, American football team, and I have no idea, to be honest with you. But he shouldn't be playing any sport. He shouldn't be active in sport at all. He should just go away. Hopefully that's the last we see of him. We believe it was the last fight in his contract. The experiment's over. I'm sick of seeing him sneaking his way into my main cards. Can we just leave him alone? Don't go anywhere near him. As much as I did enjoy watching him get his butt kicked, it's time for him to go. For Sergey Spivak, Marcin Tybura, I like that one. Bit of a grappling fight. Tybura's kind of, he's in a good spot. I think Sergey Spivak, he lost to Tom Aspinall. Tom Aspinall's, a guy who's looking up the ladder and is, fighting now to be a top 5 guy. Really, he's probably 1 or 2 fights away from a title shot as it stands. So I think we understand and we appreciate that, okay, Sergey Spivak did lose that fight, but he lost to a legitimate guy. So I don't think we treat him too harshly. I think we'll give him a Marcin Tybura. That's a good fight. And that was all for the main card. Some other talking points then. Jalen Turner and Jamie Mullarkey. That was a great fight as well. This card was great, and this card was good on paper in terms of the quality of the fights. Maybe not. It's maybe missing the title fight at the top, obviously, but other than that, very good card. Jalen Turner defeats Jamie Mullarkey. Great fight there. And maybe a Thiago Moises for Jalen Turner. Not quite a top 5. Not quite a top 15 guy, but someone who's maybe on the cusp. Maybe someone coming off a loss. Perhaps who's just kind of outside that range. But I think Jalen Turner now, the win streak he's on, let's give him a decent fighter. Let's give him someone to really test his mettle and see if he's got what it takes to hang with the elites. Not with the elites, but with the top 15 or so guys in the world in this weight class. Marina Rodriguez defeated Yan Xiaonan via split decision. Very close fight. I had it for Marina Rodriguez. I did. I gave her rounds 2 and 3. I think round 1 was definitely Xiaonan's. I think round 2, I'm pretty sure it was round 2 was definitely Rodriguez's. And I think round 3 was really close. It could have went either way. But for Marina Rodriguez, there is no doubt about it. She should be fighting for the title next. But not against Rose Namajunas. She should be fighting against the winner of Rose Namajunas and Carla Esparza. If you look at Marina Rodriguez and the kind of body of work that she's kind of put over, the body of work that she's accumulated now over the past few fights. Amanda Hebas, Michelle Watterson, Mackenzie Dern. That fight was a title eliminator. And then against Yan Xiaonan. It's the fight. She's got to be fighting for the belt next, right? Our last loss was Carla Esparza, who also defeated Yan Xiaonan in what was also a title eliminator fight ages ago, or what should have been a title eliminator fight. So yeah, Esparza is long overdue a title shot, and now we're just creating a backlog where Marina Rodriguez is now deserving of one. So hopefully we can get that done ASAP and get this division moving, because I don't like this when this happens and clear and obvious number 1 contenders begin to stack up. There's a backlog of them. It's just messy, and it means people will miss out, and it means that we can't see these fights, and I want to see this version of Marina Rodriguez that has earned a title shot get a title shot. I don't want to miss out on that, I hate when that happens, when there's a fighter who kind of earns a shot and then they don't get it. They have to sit out, or they have to face sitting out or taking other fights, and that sort of thing happens. So yeah, can we do that, please? Thank you, Mr. UFC. And Yan Xiaonan, I think maybe the Michelle Watterson, Amanda Hebas winner, she's lost a couple now, albeit to 2 girls who were probably the number 1 contenders at the time. So a little step down. Maybe the Michelle Watterson, Amanda Hebas winner. Maybe you give her someone coming off of a loss. Maybe Mackenzie Dern would be interesting. I don't know if she's got a fight. I think she actually has, but I can't think against who right now. I think she's booked though. Strawweight's quite heavily booked. So maybe we do that. Maybe the loser of Mackenzie Dern fight if she's fighting someone. I'm not sure if she is though. We also had Nikolai Negromano. Did I pronounce that right? I don't know. I probably didn't. He defeated Kennedy Nzechukwu via split decision as well. And that was another very close fight, another very entertaining fight, I think, for Nikolai. I'm not going to talk about them all now, but I think for Nikolai, let's give him Maxim Grishin, right? That's a fun one. I reckon we should do that. And then we've got Marina Moroz, who defeated Maria Agapova, and this was my favourite fight. Honestly, my favourite matchup coming into this card was this one. And it lived up to it. It was excellent. Maria Agapova, she comes out strong. She's got great long limbs and she's very creative with her striking, and she's also pretty good with the grappling. But, you'd maybe even argue that Maria Agapova's a better grappler than a striker. I don't know. I personally wouldn't, but I've seen some people say that. So I guess it is a legitimate opinion from some. Against Marina Moroz, who's a great very good boxer, very good kickboxer, but she's also pretty efficient in the grappling, and she gets the arm triangle and wins this fight in the second round, and it was just from first bell to last, it was so much fun. Marina Moroz is a fighter that, we'll talk about Maria Agapova first, because she was someday, I remember her UFC debut against Hannah Cyphers really well, because it was one of those ones where you sit there and you go, right, okay, this person is legitimate, and obviously she'd been on the Contender Series before, came up short, worked her way back, made light work of Hannah Cyphers, and then she was on the receiving end of the biggest upset in UFC history by way of betting odds, which was pretty funny when you consider just how hyped she was in the fight before. But that's why, right? When Sheena Dawson beat her, that's why she was such a big favourite, because she was that good in her debut. She obviously bounced back, and now finds herself in here, Marina Moroz, who's someone who has genuinely been she's on the cusp of the top 10, I think, her whole career. The issue is that she just does not fight enough. She's so inactive. She is a bit of a pull-out merchant, which is really irritating, and it's really hindered her career because she's such a talented girl. As much as, I wept for Joanne Calderwood all those years ago in Krakow after Marina Moroz beat her, but you could see that night she was talented and she's got it, and she put on a really good performance against a genuine, burgeoning contender in this division. So hopefully for Marina Moroz, we're going to see a big fight for her, a good fight. I want to see her fight someone in the top 10. Maybe you give her the loser of the Michelle Waterson and Amanda Ribas fight. Maybe you give her the winner of that fight. I think there's options there for Marina Moroz. But yeah, I was really happy with the overall fight there. As I said, it was one I was really expecting a lot from, and we got a good one there. So very buzzing with that. All right then, Umar Nurmagomedov defeated Brian Kelleher. Of course, what a performance from Umar there. And I mean, he just does what. But his last name is Nurmagomedov. How do you think the fight went? He just does what he does. I think that's 3 submission wins for him now on the bounce. Yeah, he needs a big fight. Let's give him Saeed Nurmagomedov. That'd be fun. No, that would be fun, but I don't think so. I think for him, there's a couple here. There's a couple I think that are quite nice. Maybe like a Kyler Phillips, maybe a Ricky Simone, maybe the winner of Timur Valiev and Jack Shore, of course, which is happening in a couple of weeks. There's options for Saeed Nurmagomedov, but as you can kind of see, I'm trying to give him someone that's a bit of a grappler, a bit of a wrestler, right? I think that's what I want to see from him next. Yeah, let's do that. Those are fun fights. I'd love to see one of them. Hopefully that happens as well. We go down the card. We've also got Tim Elliott, who defeated Tagir Ulanbekov, and that was a very good fight, a very fun fight as well. I thought Ulanbekov was going to win that. I thought Ulanbekov was going to be one of the next dudes at flyweight. He was going to be a top 15 guy. And Tim Elliott, I mean, no disrespect to Tim Elliott, he's a fun fighter. He spent a lot of his career fighting the best guys in this division, but he's got a negative UFC record, right? I think he's 7-10. He's not a world beater. Even though I know he came the closest to beating Demetrius Johnson during his title reign in the UFC, I suppose. Well, did he? No, he didn't come the closest. I think Ian McCall probably did. I think John Dawson done well as well. But he almost finished him, right? I guess that's the point. Taking out Tagir Ulanbekov, that is a very nice win for Tim Elliott. But, I mean, he lost his last one before that against Matthias Nicolau, so I don't really know where he is in the division. He's in such an awkward spot. He's like the gatekeeper. He's the ultimate gatekeeper, really, right now. So I think for him, maybe an Amir Al-Badsi, maybe you do that fight. Maybe Malcolm Gordon. He just defeated Dennis Bondar. Maybe you do that for him. Maybe Jeff Molina. I don't know. There's a couple of options for Tim Elliott. Oddy Osborne. I don't know. There's a few names. One of those, I don't think it really matters a tremendous amount. As I said, he's in gatekeeper status, so he should be kind of taking on those guys who are trying to break into the top 15 and seeing if they're good enough, because he seems to be the ultimate guy who is just good enough to hang on to that top 15 status, and he will beat some of them like Tagir Ulanbekov, who came in with a really impressive record. So, I mean, Tim Elliott, yeah, good for him. He's still there. He's still alive and kicking. Ludovic Klein got the split decision win over Devontae Smith. This was a fun fight, and this was again another. I know I keep saying they're fun fights, but oh my god, they were. 2 guys who I thought were going to be really at the top of the lightweight division. Not really at the top, but we're going to be there and making some noise. I think they were 3-2 coming into this respectively, kind of out of their last few fights. And listen, absolutely zero shame in losing to the guys that they're losing to. You look at Ludovic Klein, right? And I think he lost to he lost to Nate Landwehr and Michael Trezano in his last 2 fights. Good guys as well. And Devontae Smith again was coming into this fight off a loss to Jimmy Malarkey, who we seen earlier. So yeah, I think Ludovic Klein looked great at 155. His takedown defense was unbelievable. Right, he's got great kicks as well. He can strike, he can grapple. His takedown defense was impeccable. I think for him, I don't know. I mean, he's kind of could be anybody really. Maybe a Mason Jones just because he's Welsh. That's one that's sprung to mind. There's options though for him. I'd say maybe Mason Jones. Why not? Let's do that for him next. And then finally, we'll talk about Dustin Jacoby. Of course, the kickboxer. He looked very good in this fight as well. He did struggle maybe in the opening stages of this one, but once he started feeling his rhythm, firing on all cylinders, he does what he does, and he got the victory over Mikhail Oleksiejczuk. And he's on a bit of a win streak right now. Top 15, absolutely beckoning for Dustin Jacoby. Maybe like a Ryan Spann, maybe Johnny Walker. One of those kind of guys. I think I'd like to see him in there. Maybe the loser of this Paul Craig, Nikita Krylov fight that's coming up perhaps as well. I think I'd like to see him in there. One of those guys would make a lot of sense for Dustin Jacoby, but he's in there as well. Right, but anyway, that is it. That's going to wrap up the first episode of the Broken Orbital MMA podcast. As I said before, go follow us on Twitter at @BrokenOrbital_. Go follow us on TikTok at Broken Orbital. We're on Instagram as well. I think it's Broken Orbital MMA. Go follow us there. We're on Spotify, we're on YouTube, we're on Google Podcasts, we're on Apple Podcasts as well. So, go listen to us anywhere you want. That's all I've got to say, really. Thank you so much for just tuning in and listening. This has been quite lengthy, I know, but hopefully you enjoyed it. Any amendments that you want me to make, I'm absolutely open to interpretation and to critique. You know, anything that people want to see, I will absolutely take on board. You know, this is for people to listen to and enjoy, really. So I just want to cater to your interests as a listener. That's what's most important to me right now in this whole project. But if you did enjoy it, please share it about and stuff. Get people listening to this, because it would mean a lot to me. And we keep this going, keep this alive, right? This is what we want to see. I hope I'll see you in a couple of days' time for my Thiago Santos and Magomed Ankalaev predictions and preview of that fight. Maybe talk about a couple of bets as well. I'm feeling maybe we'll do that as well. But thank you so much just for giving me your attention. I think as well we will probably implement video podcasts as well for the YouTube. So if that's something you want to see, if that would pique your interest more, then let me know as well. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope I'll see you in the next episode. Take care.